back, everyone. My next guest, we just heard her ad, is Jenna Bailey, and she's the founder of Bailey Law Firm. Welcome back to the show. You've been on several times, and I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourselves, because it's kind of special what you've offered for your clients.
Sure. So I own a law firm here in town called Bailey Law Firm, and we intend to be a one-stop shop for everyday people and small business owners.
And you have 4 locations. So let's talk a little bit about how far you go out and why you have those 4 locations for everyone.
Sure. And it's actually 3, maybe 4 sometime soon.
Oh, I thought it was 4. Okay, go ahead. That's my other client that's growing. So go ahead.
Yeah, maybe 4 soon. But Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. And again, the idea is to be as convenient as we can for our clients, so we want to serve everyone wherever is convenient for them.
Now, today you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about something that is really important for people to understand. And I mean, I don't even really ever think about this, especially when it comes to lawyers, but short-term rentals. I want to talk a little bit about why you want to talk about that first, and why it's so important for people to listen up about the law part of all these things and people getting into it.
Sure. So I thought this was an important topic now because, as we know, there's a lot of exciting things happening in Arizona next year. Super Bowl will be here. We always have spring training. The weather's fabulous. So there's a lot of incentive to engage in short-term renting. It's a great opportunity. It's a great investment opportunity. And I'm certainly not here to tell anyone not to do it. I think it's fabulous. However, understand that there is liability that goes along with it, and there are steps to take to make sure that you're protected from it.
Now, I want to talk about the first thing that they would say, what the liability concerns would be. Go ahead.
Sure. So think about it. You own a piece of property that you're going to have a ton of random people in. So think about the things that can go wrong. One of the most obvious things is trip and falls. As we all know, people get sued for trip and falls. When you own a property, you could be responsible if somebody gets injured inside of that home. And just think of how much more at risk you are when you have constant strangers in the home who are unfamiliar with your home, who are unfamiliar with, the different steps in your home, who are maybe even unfamiliar with Arizona at all. Versus, when you live in your home, or even a long-term renter where it's one person or one family who's used to that home and who is not likely to have a situation like that relative to strangers. And think about it too, they may be here to party and have a good time. So there's a big risk there. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, having someone like you taking care of making sure that everything is in place. Obviously, they have to have contracts, right? Because somebody's going to sign something. They should talk to you and have a consultation with you and go over what they're going to do. Some people are getting into these businesses now, big time, especially coming up for the new year for sure. They already own homes. They're buying homes and all that kind of thing. You mentioned slip and fall, and I've got to say this. I had it happen to me where somebody was in my house, and you can think everything, you've got it all together, but you know what? The floor just might not be level enough, and somebody just accidentally falls, and they think, well, okay, I have homeowner's insurance. Is that not enough, right?
It's not enough. A homeowner's policy is not going to cover you if you engage in short-term renting. You need to disclose to your insurance carrier that you engage in short-term rentals, or else when that slip and fall happens and you call your insurance company, they're going to say, sorry, we're not covering this because we didn't know this is what you did. And you can think about it from their perspective, the insurance company's perspective. It's a lot more risk for them when you are engaging in short-term renting versus living in your home, and therefore the premium's going to be higher. So if you haven't been paying that higher premium, the coverage isn't going to be there. And that's one of the conversations we have when a client tells us they want to engage in renting. The other thing we tell them is to do it with an LLC, and that's where a lawyer can help. We help set up an LLC, so then you're actually going to own that property that you rent out in your LLC, which is going to help shield liability in the event that something happens, something catastrophic happens. You're going to have your insurance coverage, and then the plaintiff is going to be limited to the assets in your LLC and not be able to go after everything else that you own.
You're starting a business. It's basically
it's a business.
It's a
absolutely
business.
a business.
You got to treat it differently. Now, I also want them to understand that your law firm covers many areas, and you might want to tell them what you do, because they might just think business. But no, you cover a lot of different areas.
Yeah, and one of the things is estate planning, and this comes up a lot when we're actually having an estate planning consultation, because what will happen is we're talking to clients about what assets they have and whether they have any businesses, and we'll say, okay, do you own any businesses? And the client will say, no, we don't. And then later in the conversation, it comes to light that they engage in either long-term or short-term renting. And it's like, okay, well, you do actually own a business. You may not consider it a business, but you do. And so sometimes it comes into play that way. In our law firm, we also do personal injury. We do real estate law. So again, it's intended to serve as this one-stop shop for regular people and small business owners.
Now, the phone number to call them, it's 480-681-5408. Their website is BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. They have 3 locations to serve you. It's Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. And we're live on Facebook. I do want to say hi to everybody out there. I think this is perfect for you to be talking about this now, especially with people coming up, and we've got this great new year coming up upon us. Everybody wants to jump in on this. Everybody wants to make some extra money. You have to be very careful. The point is really being very careful about what you do, how you do things, because you know what? You might need her in many other ways if you don't, right?
Right.
Again, that number to call her, it's 480-681-5408. So how does somebody then, okay, they have to protect themselves against everything. Obviously talking to you, hiring an attorney.
Right.
Right? And then what do you have to do? What are the things that you're going to look out for every little thing? When you go and you work with somebody who's owning now a piece of property like this, do you have to go in to them and sit down and look at the property and go over everything? How does that work?
So really the main things is we want to make sure that they're doing it with an LLC. We want to make sure that they have proper insurance coverage, which that as lawyers we don't handle that aspect, but we make sure that they are in the hands of a professional who's making sure they're covered. And then other things that we can do is we can help them identify potential sources of liability within the property. So is there a step that's sometimes even a sunken living room? So is there something that they really should be doing to warn someone who is at their property that, hey, you may not see this step, but it's there. So we may advise them, hey, you need to have one of those warning strips, or you really should have a sign up that talks about the step. If there's a pool at the property, you want to have lots of warnings there, because obviously lots can go wrong with pools. So you want to make sure that you are following all the codes and local laws with respect to fencing and things like that, which if you're just living at the house may not matter. Maybe your fence is out of code and okay, it's just your family. But you can't do that if you're going to invite a bunch of strangers to be staying at your house.
If you're going to do something, you're starting a business, take it seriously. Hire an attorney to come in and sit down with you and go over all of what could happen, what couldn't happen, make sure that you're covered, because the bottom line is, can they get sued?
Oh yeah, you absolutely can get sued, and this is where insurance is really important, because you can win the lawsuit. Someone can, fall over a step that's obvious that they should have seen. They were drunk. It's their fault they fell. That doesn't stop them from suing you. And you still have to defend the lawsuit. You could be meritorious in the lawsuit, but it could cost you a lot of money to be meritorious. And as the party that wins...
What's meritorious? I don't want to
You win. You win the lawsuit.
That's the win?
Yeah, you win.
So guess what? Go ahead.
You still have to pay the lawyer to win, right? Unless you have insurance. So if you have the proper insurance, the insurance company is going to pay the lawyer to defend those suits that are winnable. So my whole point is, if you're not properly insured, even if you quote win, you're going to spend a ton of money to win.
The point is to make sure you're covered and make sure you take care of yourself beforehand.
Exactly.
And hiring an attorney. She has 3 locations to help you. They're located in Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. Write this number down, because I know you're going to start thinking about all these things, and you're going to want to do something, and it seems like it's going to be easy, but it's not, and you want to make sure that you do it correctly. Her phone number is 480-681-5408. The website is BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. She does all sorts of law, but you know what? This is great to be talking about this right now. So many people want to make sure that you're covered. So check her out on our website. It's BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. Hang tight. We're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to keep on talking if that's okay with you. You want to hang tight? Are you okay? Okay. So, cool stuff we're talking about. So, let's say somebody does get sued, and they can still hire you after the fact. Can we talk about that?
We can, yes.
Let's say, okay. I think that's good. Okay. You've got, okay, so she was talking about trip. She said you had an example.
I do have an example.
Okay, so we'll do that as well. Oh, I think HOA is going to be really good to talk about. Yeah, yeah. Now, when you, how many of these, I mean, are they, you finding more and more and more, because it's a hot business.
So many people are getting into it. Yeah.
Right.
And especially now, I mean, you know, apparently housing costs are potentially going to go down a little bit, so I think a lot of people are going to hop on the opportunity to buy an investment property.
Well, we do. We have a lot of investors that happen to listen because of the kind of station that it is. It's interesting though, when people, they might want to buy because you know, the prices are low, but they also might just want to jump into it. Just they already have a house, they've got a couple of them, but they're older. And you brought up a couple of things that I thought were important. The fences being up to code. You know, your gates are probably not up to code for sure. Who knows what the new code? Right.
And if it, again, that's where you just have to look at it as a different ball game than when it's just you living in your house.
Right. In every way. And there must have so many things that they need to go over each one individually as to what to do. And I'm sure they don't know. Do you help people? Let somebody is starting off, you know, and they don't know. They don't know, but I want to do this. Do you kind of go over things and say, you know, have like a list of things they need to do?
I can give example, you know, because I know the different things that can give rise to liability. I've seen the different reasons that people get sued. So yeah, I can go through. Okay,
absolutely.
Tell me, list all the steps in your house. Even the little riser, the garage riser, that's a step. Like list everything that's in your house.
I'm telling you now. I mean, this is now before I ever even. I mean, this is like 11, 12, 15 years ago when I had a business that I was doing. It was in-home networking. They used to come to my house and we did networking. I never even gave it a thought. Now that was a long time ago. Things were a little bit different, but I did have a. What's that? It was just different. But the one lady that came to my house, the pavement was not
like a little uneven.
Was just a little off. But she was in a wheelchair, and she somehow something happened, and she fell and went over, and I heard it, and I was like, oh my God. Luckily for me, nothing happened. We took care of her. Da 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 da. But that's not the point. Now today, things are way different than they were. Way different.
Well, even like with that, your homeowner's policy is going to cover that.
Correct.
So that's different than engaging in a business where people are paying to cut. You're collecting money.
Believe me, they were. So it was wrong no matter what at the time.
Yeah.
But we won't tell anyone.
No,
except the people on Facebook. So welcome back, everyone. We've been talking a little bit about, you know, we're talking about these short-term rentals that everybody's getting into. It's a big, huge business that everyone's kind of jumping in on the bandwagon, sort of say. And we're talking with Jenna Bailey. She is the owner of Bailey Law Firm. And yet she does all sorts of law. But today we're talking about this because we have Super Bowl coming up. We just have everything where people are going to really want to do this. And we talked a little bit about before the break about how people need to make sure that their liabilities, so that they need to make sure things are up to snuff. And I said to you, how does anybody even know? Like, you know, a lot of people, you said they might buy a house. The investors that are listening, the housing market is going, the houses are going down in prices a little bit. So why not jump in on that? But I said to you, there's a lot of people that already own homes. Maybe they own 2 or 3 of them that are older. How are they going to know if their gates are up to snuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have gone out to people's homes to look ourselves. We sit down and say, hey, describe your home for me, room for room. And then I know, because I've seen the examples of people getting sued, I know what types of things are potentially problematic. I always have people tell me every single step that's in their home, even if they don't think of it as a step. A lot of people say, well, we don't have any steps, and you really do. And one of the examples I have, of someone getting sued is in their garage, the little 3 to 4 inch.
I know it.
Platform.
I've fallen myself.
Yeah, but that's actually code in Arizona. You have to have one of those. And one of my clients got sued because someone tripped over it and didn't see it and fell. And it's code to have one, right? So that's my whole point of they won the lawsuit. We were victorious, but that didn't stop them from getting sued, and someone got significantly injured on it. So.
And I had asked you too before we came back from the break, which was, do you help people with like a list of things? Because, how can anyone even remember to think about everything?
Yeah, exactly. We help people with a list of things, and again, we can even go walk the property with them, and I help identify, okay, I could see someone falling here, I could see this being a problem, and then we help implement the strategies. So the first line strategies are, like I've mentioned, the LLC and the insurance, but then we dive in a lot more detail with that is where is it appropriate to put warnings, because that's what your responsibility ultimately is if there is a condition that is dangerous to people who are going to be staying on your property, you have an obligation to warn of it. Or, if it's a actual hazard, you need to fix it, obviously, if a repair is required. But if it's like a step, you're not obligated to get rid of the step. You're not obligated to get rid of a pool, obviously. But to provide warnings when appropriate. And that's what the strategies we can help implement is when do you need warnings and how do you effectively warn these people who are going to be coming and staying at your house.
Let's say somebody's just trying this just for their first time, right? And they really just want to just have fun, see what happens. Still have to call you?
Call me, yep. Let's do the consultation. Let's talk about whether there's any things to be concerned over. And I don't want to scare anyone. I'm an entrepreneur. I think it's wonderful. I would never deter anyone from engaging in short-term renting. I think it's a great opportunity to make money, and you can absolutely do it safely. You can absolutely do it in a way that protects you from liability. So let's just make sure we're implementing that strategy.
It's the whole point is to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, obviously you want to protect other people.
You don't want people to get hurt, right?
No.
No one wants that to happen. But if things can happen, and if it does happen, you certainly don't want your personal assets on the line because somebody got hurt.
Right. And you don't want to have to spend money on an attorney if you don't have to.
Right.
But when they come into play, such as yourself, and I think that's what you're talking about now. I come into play to help them be able to make sure that they are covered and make sure that their liabilities are none, if not, they can hope that happens. But mostly, more than anything, getting sued afterwards, that could cost so much money.
It's a lot of money. So lawyers are much cheaper on the front end. If we can help implement some strategies, that's going to be significantly cheaper than on the back end.
Write the number down and put it in, because you know what? You just never know when you're going to need an attorney, right?
Right.
That number to call, it's 480-681-5408, BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. They have 3 locations to serve you: Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. I've asked you before, second opinions. Does a second opinion apply here? Because I know we've talked about other things before, but does it apply here too?
Yeah, clients, may have mentioned to other lawyers that they engage in short-term renting who either didn't say anything along these legal lines or maybe just said a couple things. So yeah, we've had clients who called and said, I've talked to another lawyer, but they didn't, think much of this. Is there anything I'm missing? And
you might want to make sure, because you want to make sure that you're covered. That's the main thing. We want to talk a little bit about HOAs and how they allow these short-term rentals.
So the big thing to know on this is whether or not the property that you own allows short-term renting, which there are people who think that it's allowed and it's actually not. By the CC&Rs, it's not allowed. That's one thing, but the bigger issue right now is there's been this trend towards it was previously allowed and now the HOA is banning short-term renting. So we help investors navigate, hey, I want to buy this property, can you, and right now they currently allow short-term renting, but what I don't want to have happen is I buy it for the purpose of renting out and then the HOA changes on me. And the law in that area in Arizona is pretty gray right now, so it's definitely advisable to have an attorney help review what the current CC&Rs state to help you assess whether or not you're at risk for the HOA changing to ban it at some point in the near future.
I think that's great that you're bringing that up, because I never even would have thought about that. You know, I would say, of course, if you call your HOA and they say to you, of course, yes, we allow it right now. Of course, they're not going to say right now. They're not going to tell you in the future they might change their mind. And then that's really a big thing.
And how huge is, you know, then you...
And don't try and fight them, because that, I'm sorry, you definitely need Jenna for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's expensive and it's bad. But yeah, you want to know, and again, it's just about making an informed decision. So maybe you move forward with the property anyway, but then at least you know, hey, based on how my CCNRs are currently worded, I may be at risk for sometime in the future there being a change that disallows this.
So where you come in with that would be on for let's say your client that is buying this property here. How can you help them so that that doesn't happen for them? I mean, what do you do? Put a clause in their contract, or how can you even do that?
No, it's more about making them informed about what the risk is. So I can't change the CCNRs say what they say.
Right.
So what I can do is explain the current state of the law in Arizona as it relates to HOAs changing from previously it was allowed and now it's not. Mm-hmm. And I can advise them, hey, based on what your CCNRs currently say and based on what the case law in Arizona currently says, I think that you probably are at a low risk of a significant change in the future, or I think you are at a high risk because the court has already upheld similar language changing.
Definitely have a conversation with her, because you know what? You will not be able to know that. That's what you're trained in. You know that you can look at it and kind of give them an idea of what's kind of come down, what could come down in the near future. It's just an informed
decision.
And you know what? I think that's what attorneys really want to do. A lot of people think it's all about the money, but it's really not. I think arming people with good information so that they can make good decisions, right?
Especially business owners, because again, I'm an entrepreneur. I think go do it, pursue your idea, pursue what you want to do, just understand, the risks involved with it.
When is a good time to call you? Obviously before anyone even starts, but does it matter?
No, anytime. I mean, if you've already been doing it, still call, right? Great, knock on wood, you haven't had any issues, but call and let's make sure maybe you haven't had any issues because you're doing everything perfect, and we can tell you that, and then you have that peace of mind. So anywhere from just starting to just thinking you might start to you've already been doing it for 10 years.
Their number is 480-681-5408, BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. 3 locations: Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. I was just thinking in my mind, a lot of people are probably going to try and get into doing this right now. It's, do you find yourself like you're finding a lot of people that are doing it right now? Are you finding it on the rise big time?
Big time on the rise. It's very popular.
And I think that what's really important is that, like when we're talking about this here, anybody that's looking into this, I think the best time to call is now, before you even do anything. Even if you've already done something, great. That's like she said, if nothing's happened, fine, but you might want to call her to make sure, because I am absolutely positive that they're going to change some laws, because the more things are successful, somehow they do that on people, right?
Well, and it's the HOA thing. The reason that has become an issue is because of the uptick in the instances of short-term renting. So as you can imagine, there's a neighborhood and some people that's their primary residence, and some people are engaging in short-term renting. So for the people who live there all the time, maybe they don't like that now half of their neighborhood is, they have bachelorette parties there all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's the push for the change, is the rise in popularity.
Call them now. Don't wait and don't delay on this, especially you do not want to get yourself sued. That can happen so easily in this situation. Their phone number to call is 480-681-5408, BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. What are your final words?
My final words are do it. It's a great thing to do. Just make sure you're doing it intelligently.
Get the number and write it down. You never know. She also does other estate planning, business planning, real estate. We've all got this now. Give her a call. The phone number is 480-681-5408. It's BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. She'll even do second opinions for you. 3 locations. It's Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. Check them out. It's BaileyLawFirmAZ.com.